Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the UX world. Today's show is going to be an epic show. It's going to be a unique show and something that we haven't done before. We're going to be talking about voice design and development and also bot design and development. And in particular, we're going to be looking at two things. One thing is how can you take a concept from concept to a working prototype of a voice application. So we're going to be looking at how you would go about planning, delivering a discovery workshop in the voice space to create a voice application. And we're also going to be talking about a tool called BotTalk. So our guest today is a very special guest, Andrey Esaulov. He is the founder or co-founder of BotTalk and the CEO of Smart House Technologies. He's going to be taking us through the whole thing about the differences between bots and voice applications and the similarities between voice and chat bots and things like that. He's going to be talking to us about Smart House, about BotTalk, how it works, how you can build skills on there, and how you can take yourself through a discovery workshop to take yourself from idea to concept to prototype. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the UX world. Now, before I introduce today's guest, I would first like to introduce the VUX World Alexa Flash Briefing. Indeed, we do have a flash briefing. It's live now. You can enable it now. You can just ask Alexa to enable the VUX World Flash Briefing, or you can go to vux.world/flash, and there's a link there. You can enable it there. The original idea for this flash briefing was to play clips of the podcast on the flash briefing throughout the week. And then the more I thought about that, the more I realised that actually the people who are going to be listening to the flash briefing is you lot, the people who are listening to the podcast. So you're not going to get a great deal of added value necessarily by listening to clips of the podcast that you've already heard on Monday and listening to that throughout the week. So instead, we're going to try something a little bit different, and we're going to try something that will be a little bit more exciting, a little bit more exclusive as well. So what we're going to do with the flash briefing, every single week, every Monday on the podcast, we are going to announce a question or a topic or a discussion point to you, the listeners, and the industry via Twitter. And we're going to ask you a question or pose a discussion point or something like that. And we're asking you to get involved and tell us your thoughts. Now, you can do that on Twitter if you like, and that's been going quite well. We've had a lot of polls on Twitter, and people have been getting involved in those discussions, so you can do that. Or you can go to vux.world/flash and you can upload your response to that question or your point for that discussion in audio form, and we will then play that on the flash briefing throughout the week. So the idea of this really is to get everybody involved in these discussions and to continue the points and the discussions that we're having on the podcast throughout the week, and to get you lot involved as well. So this week's discussion point, the very first discussion point on the flash briefing, comes from Florian Halland, and he was featuring on the podcast a few weeks back talking about voice games. He's working at Jovo right now. He is a voice app developer and reviewer, excellent reviewer on Medium. Check him out. Today's question comes from Florian Halland, and he says, what makes an average voice experience a great voice experience? What turns something average into something excellent in a voice-first environment? Let us know any skills, any tips, any practical advice that you have for turning an average voice experience into an excellent voice experience, and get involved in the discussion. Thank you, Florian, for your discussion point there. And everybody, do get involved. Head to Twitter, or preferably go to vux.world/flash. Let us know what turns an average experience into a excellent experience in a voice-first world. And we will play your responses all the way through the week on the VUX World Flash Briefing. So, that's the Flash Briefing. Now, without further ado, let's get to today's guest, Andrey Esaulov. So, Andrey, welcome to VUX World.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Whereabouts are you now then? Germany, is it?
Yeah, in Cologne.
Cologne, fantastic. Very vibrant space, Germany, isn't it, for the whole sort of voice thing and chatbots area?
Yeah, and it's been for a year now because Amazon has put the Alexa into the market last year, and since then Amazon was on the road shows all over the country. And it's picking up, and of course Google is helping as well. So this competition that is going on is helping the whole space. So lots of developers, lots of events, I think. But I think in the terms of development of this whole things, we are still kind of a step behind U.S. markets. But I'm hoping we could get there. Yeah. In this year, probably.
Cool. I think the Americans are just storming ahead, aren't they? I think the whole of Europe's been left behind by America at the minute.
Yeah, a bit.
But not for long, because we have Smart House Technologies and BotTalk that is bridging that gap. Do you want to tell us, we'll get into Smart House and BotTalk in a second, but first, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, and then how you got into founding and becoming the CEO of Smart House Technologies?
Yeah, sure. So, as you can probably hear from my accent, I'm from Russia, and I've been actually born in Siberia. And then we moved with the family to Moscow, and where I started to go to university, and I studied computer science along the side with languages. So just from the beginning, I was kind of trying to try to marry this whole two worlds, these computer science world and languages, and I think it's a perfect combination nowadays, where I can kind of dig up all this PhD that I did in linguistics and put it to work. Right now, where the voice interfaces are. Dominant in the space. So I founded a couple of startups. We started to do things in, as usually in in the mobile space. Smart House started as a company that was generating growth hacking knowledge and kind of bringing growth hacking into the mobile space, and we still do that, the part of a company. But as I said before, the last year was like this whole surge of voice interfaces that our clients were asking us about, and so we kind of saw the opportunity there. And just jumped into the space, as I said before. The PhD in linguistics and literature didn't actually hurt. So it was a nice combination. Yeah.
Cool. That's quite fortunate, isn't it? It sounds like, because obviously the whole sort of voice design space, and you hear quite a lot of things around people saying to try and make your kind of voice application sound like a human and try and make the conversation natural. So having a kind of background in linguistics must have just been like right up your alley. That it must have been sort of like, you must have took to it really quickly. But
sometimes it's also disappointing a bit that the tech is so behind.
Right.
So I think a couple of your guests already kind of touched on this grounds that from the scientific point of view, if you look at this moment in time that we find ourselves in, we are kind of in a brink of natural language processing, and it's not probably the way that the most of the public is dreaming about, right? So I think, and this is also me coming from this linguistics area. I was hoping that the tech is so far behind, and then when you actually get your kind of geeky part of you and computer science part of you, actually get behind all this tech, then you say, "Oh God, it is actually only intense and a bit of logic, but no AI whatsoever." And despite of the marketing behind it, being AI driven. But I think in terms of making it look like a human interface, making it look like Alexa is talking to you as a human. I think this is the part that we could actually fake it till we make it.
Right. Convince people that it's smarter than it might be.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
So the technology, the primitive technology side of things then is, and you might have kind of touched on that, but maybe if you could clarify, are you talking about the technology in terms of understanding requests is primitive, or the ability to formulate responses to those things, or is it the whole thing?
I think it's kind of the whole thing. So I think the NLP part, like natural language processing, is good enough. We wouldn't be able to do the stuff that we are doing without the NLP that we have now, right? So I think it's a very cool part. But I think the part that is coming afterwards, like the part that we are as developers are trying to kind of solve, this is like very primitive, and from the standpoint of tooling and from the standpoint of the whole infrastructure and kind of things that we are trying to guess what the user means by intents, is actually not how the things are working. And I see it, during our workshops and during real user testing. So, I was hoping that Amazon or Google would come up with the idea that you actually providing the intent in the real sense of this word, telling Google, I'm going to write this application that is going to book something. And then the whole logic is already kind of pre-written. And I'm very excited to see what Amazon is doing with their blueprints right now.
Yeah.
That are going in this direction of intents in the sense of what I am trying to accomplish. What is the user is actually trying to accomplish, going into this direction instead of just what is the user is trying to tell you, and let's just go from there.
Yeah. So going down to the what am I trying to actually do, as opposed to what have they said, and then let's figure it out from there, sort of thing.
Yeah, because I think of it as a use case driven development. You have to get your use case so good that you actually understand, okay, this is the USP that you are delivering to your user. Because I have this the whole background in mobile apps, and if you don't have use case behind your mobile app, you might just don't even bother because there are so many apps out there, and you don't have any chance if you don't have any USP, and that is what is kind of lacking in this whole voice area. Is if I look at the German market of skills, that's just sad because you see this kind of apps that are there, skills that are there. Well, people wrote them because they could.
Yeah.
Not because they should. And this is the kind of thing that I'm hoping that Amazon and Google will kind of push forward like this, and get down to what is the user experience behind it? What is the use actually behind it?
Yeah. It sounds as though, so for example, if you were to try and get an app published on the Apple App Store, for example, you would have to go through a pretty intense certification process, wouldn't you? And in actual fact, these days, broadly speaking, there are a few shit ones out there, but broadly speaking, if you download an app from somewhere, it's probably going to be all right. It's going to be decent enough, isn't it? You're not really going to, you might be disappointed with, I don't know, the content or some of the functionality, but broadly speaking, apps are fairly consistent. Whereas it seems as you mentioned the quality of skills, might be people just maybe trying it out, cutting the teeth sort of thing, playing around rather than focus on a specific use case. Do you think the certification process then is a bit lax in that respect, in terms of just letting all kinds of kind of experimental stuff through, as opposed to really making sure that these things have been kind of nailed to a use case or really high quality before letting them kind of through?
Probably, but I don't think this is like dominant reason for this. I think the follow the money thing is the reason. So there are good apps out there because people know how much money it costs to develop the app, and they make all this thinking process beforehand, so they could make a actual business case behind the app. and that's why the apps are so good. Because and this is the problem that we are facing, and everyone is talking about, like the business model behind the voice apps. But I think when we had the business behind skills, this would, the market would kind of figure out it for itself. The bad skills will just die off, and the good ones, where the actual power behind it, and when I say power is money. The market will actually figure out stuff like this for itself. So I think, we should wait for the monetization to come, or again, as one of your previous guests said, make come up with the monetization ourselves. It's not that we lack the skills, or we lack some SDKs. It's not about SDKs. It's what I've been trying to say all the time is it's about use case. Make the skill that will make money, that will be so useful that the people are ready to pay, a transaction, or to make a transaction, pay you money in whatever form possible. But make a good product. This is easy as that.
Cool. There was a thing that came out, I think it was either this week, where Alexa has now got itself onto some TVs, and the article was saying essentially that the smart TVs that are now Alexa enabled are going to be kind of like really high end, and they might price a lot of people out, but over time you'll have Alexa on your TV, and then it will kind of enable things like being able to change channels and find catch up content and stuff like that. But one of the things I was thinking is that what it might actually enable is for you to be able to, speaking about the monetization side of things, it might enable you to be able to do things like buy the product that's in the ad through your telly while the ad's on, or something like that. Now, that wouldn't necessarily help the third-party skill development, but you can kind of see how Amazon might be playing around with the concept of heading towards making it, a kind of a monetized platform. It's a question, I suppose, of how that then transfers into the third-party kind of skill area.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. And I think before we kind of go to the skill first businesses, we're never gonna get the quality of the skills on the level of apps, because I think what we need is like Instagram for skills. Instagram was an app that was only available on one platform and was available as an app. It wasn't a website. It wasn't anything. It was an iOS app. That's it. And that's what we're actually needing in this space. And I don't see from the technical perspective, I don't see any problem with that. You could do account linking. You could do the business behind it. You can't do transactions on the Amazon end, right? But you can still do transactions on your end, right? So that's not the technical problem. That's just a problem of of the value behind your skill. You have to kind of find the value, and
Cool. So tell us a little bit about BotTalk then. I've been on there just now, and then I had a little bit of a play around. It looks like it's a really decent tool. Tell the listeners a little bit about BotTalk, where it came from, and what it does. Mm-hmm.
So BotTalk, as a name, actually kind of suggests, comes from the whole idea of writing bots, like Facebook bot and Telegram bot. And the idea is pretty simple. We wanted to create a language that would allow you to write a logic of your whole bot or voice application in a form that front-end developer would write in HTML, right? So because the state of the art right now is that you have to be kind of a hardcore developer to kind of create your first bot or skill or whatever. And it's pretty easy to kind of start off and create trivia skill with tools like Storyline. Yeah, and the Storyline is great. They're great guys, visual way to kind of create. But then you get into the space of logic and into third-party APIs, into the parameters in these APIs, and you kind of hit the wall. Because there is no way to remember state in between calls of the skill and stuff like that. And we wanted to, and it's kind of from the developer perspective, you have to be like Node.js developer, or really hardcore backend developer to understand all these API calls that you have to parse from the Alexa. And if you want to kind of have another platform, then you have to parse another API and whatever. And we thought, well, let's just create something that will be not this user-friendly as storyline. It's not a drag-and-drop tool, but it's still a language. This is the language where you can, in simple markup language, can describe the logic of your bot or of your voice app, and that's what we actually end up doing.
And the language that you chose is, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing this, YAML.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. YAML is an old configurational standard that was used by stuff like Ruby on Rails and Symfony and all these big frameworks. It's pretty easy to understand for human. It was written to be understandable for humans as as a kind of answer to a whole XML problem. Like YAML is very easy to read, and that's why we kind of chose this kind of language. Yeah.
Cool. It does seem fairly kind of fair. I mean, I'd never heard of it before, to be honest with you. But I mean, just looking through, sometimes you'll see JavaScript, and I'm a bit of an amateur with JavaScript. I can get my way through it. I can bug fix, but if you just give me a blank document and said write me something that does X, Y, Z, I'd probably struggle. But sometimes when you see JavaScript that other people have written, it kind of might take you a while to figure out what's good. Well, for me anyway, it takes me a while to figure out what's happening. I'm thinking, okay, well, this does that. And whereas with this, and I'm just talking about the kind of demo skills that you have in there, it does all follow a fairly simple thing. You've got steps, you've got actions, you've got context, you've got what's in there? Get URL, set context, send text. It all reads in perfect English kind of thing, and what the action does and what the feature does is exactly how it's described. It's really easy to follow, isn't it?
Yeah, that was, I hope it is so, because the whole idea was kind of, if you put it in front of a developer that never actually seen our syntax, right? And the syntax is pretty easy. Like we have like 5 actions, as you already already kind of touched down on all of them, and if the developer sees that he could actually read it, or she could actually read it as the plain English, yeah. So it's all about send text or send card or get input when we're waiting for a user to say something, and with the syntax like next, it's pretty obvious what is happening. Well, the next is the next step. So and stuff like that. So we were kind of taking this idea from Ruby, obviously, so you could actually, the syntax that you're writing, you could fairly easily understand, and actually even be kind of emotionally bind to, instead of having all these curly braces all over the place.
Mm-hmm. So YAML is seemingly a language that was already in existence. In terms of how you've created this tool, have you then kind of created your own version of the language to create all of the various kind of actions and variables and things like that you have available in BotTalk?
Yeah, you could say that, yeah. So we are using YAML format, so you could kind of, be familiar with that. But in terms of the language, we kind of, created several kind of namespaces where you could describe your skills with. And we've launched it about 2 months ago, but we've been working with it productively, building the skills, building the bots for more than 8 months.
All right.
So and then we thought, okay, it's probably time to kind of put it out for the developers to use. And and the reason why we took YAML and then took we actually took several technologies and put them together. So you can use Twig as your templating language. Twig is the way for you to kind of basically to work with templates and to do stuff like if, else, loops and stuff like that. But again, in a fashion that every front-end developer would understand, because every front-end developer would work with some kind of templating language without going into the nitty-gritty of backend. And that was the idea, because we think that, you know, user experience in terms of voice user experience, you could actually see it the same way that you would develop just normal app. There is a front-end developer, there is a back-end developer, and there is a designer, like UX designer. And at the moment, there's a whole group of UX designers that are using visual tools, and there is a whole gap between that and back-end developers. And that's what BotTalk is trying to fill.
Okay, that sounds cool. So do you kind of use that tool yourself then as well when you're sort of, if you're building stuff, do you use this thing yourself for building things like it or not?
Yeah, all of it. All of it. Yeah, so basically we understood pretty early down the road that we need the variables. We need session management. We need to track where the user is in this flow of decision making, and we need for the user to be able to kind of, you know, jump between this decision trees and stuff like that, and then developed in this kind of language for a while, as I said before. And yeah, so every skill that we're developing in the moment is built on this platform, which is also helping us with every new skill that Smart House Technologies is developing, to improve the BotTalk as a platform.
Yeah, because obviously, yeah, so whatever functionality you get the requirements for, you then build that into the platform going forward.
Exactly.
That's cool. So you mentioned there then in terms of trying to figure out where the user is in the session, that's presumably the context variables, is it? Do you want to explain a little bit about, because that's a fairly unique thing from some of the other tools I've seen. Do you want to explain a little bit about how the context variables work?
Yeah, so basically the problem is that you have to remember stuff between sessions, right? So every time that your skill is kind of started, you don't want to move, you know, in the same way. This is you know, faking it until you make it, right? So probably for the first time the skill is starting, it will ask your name and what are you waiting, where do you live, and what are you hoping to achieve, right? And the second time you start the skill, of course you obviously don't want to answer all these questions, and you want the skill just jump into the probably getting the data you wanted in the first place. So, and that's what the context variables are for. You kind of, you know, this is the key value storage. You could actually put any stuff in that. You know, just name it, and you can put objects in it. You can put the whole responses from the API in it, stuff like that. And it's all saved per user in the database, meaning that you know exactly when the user is starting your skill for the second time. You could check, okay, he's been there for like, you know, second time and the third time and stuff like that. And the second use of context variables is between the not between the invocation of the skills, but inside of the skill, right? So you could store decision making inside of the skill and know, okay, the user at the beginning, he wanted this kind of car, he wanted this kind of this many days to book when we're talking about, like, you know, car booking service, stuff like that. And then by the end of the transaction, you could actually nicely pack it together and use it. Yeah.
Cool. That sounds good. That sounds really interesting. And
or stuff like if you make multiple API requests, right? So you could store different like responses in different context variables, and like answer the user with a complete unique kind of way, because you already kind of have this mashup of this information in your context variables. Yeah.
Cool. And it looks as though it's also really simple to incorporate support for some of the kind of multimodal devices, so the Echo Show and the Echo Spot and stuff like that. Do you want to kind of explain a little bit about how support for those devices work? Yeah,
as I mentioned before, BotTalk actually is evolving with the same pace as our skill building skills are involved. So, and we recently put in the action called send card, which is actually that you could, and this is the universal kind of action. It will send this kind of card into your visual echo device. But if you don't have it, it will just send the card into your app on your phone. And we've seen a kind of this request from our customers that they want, of course, their skill to be more visible in the app, right? For the retention to kind of grow, because at the moment you use the skill, you might forget the invocation name, and time passes by and you forget about it. And so what they wanted, and it's a very smart idea actually, is to put kind of reminder in form of the card into your app. So next time you open the app to probably, look at the other skills, you could actually get reminded, oh, actually, I installed this skill recently. And so this is the form of retention that you could do, and not only, display some, visual feedback for the devices that have displays. Yeah.
Wow. Cool. That sounds like it sounds like a great tool. I've got some time on Saturday morning. Gemma's working, so I think what I'll do is I'll get a little bit deeper into BotTalk and see what I can put together. It does sound like a good gap in the market to fill, in terms of you've got the visual side of things, and the visual prototype, and then you have got some of the because some of it can get quite complex and quite kind of codey, can't it, to put this stuff together. So it sounds as though this is a happy medium between you're still coding, you're still getting the technicalities of it, but you've got more capability than the drag and drop kind of interfaces. So yeah, it sounds like a good idea. Cool. Let's kind of move on then. Let's talk about, so you've got experience in the mobile space, you've got experience in the bot space, experience in the voice space, and I've been going to one of these meetups recently in London, which is it's called Chatbots and Voice, or Voice Chatbots, something like that. It's pretty interesting, and it kind of the whole chatbot and voice thing seems to be two things that tend to find them in the same sentence quite often. So I'm wondering whether you can, for the people who are either on the voice side or for the people who are on the chatbot side, I'm wondering whether you might be able to just explain a little bit about what some of the differences are maybe, or what some of the similarities are between chatbots and voice applications. Yeah,
sure. So I see this as a bit like history, or history of development of this whole thing, and you can actually see where all this voice topic is coming from. It is coming from the chatbots that were there in the beginning, when there was no good way kind of to work with the voice, but there was already a good way to work with text. So this is the era before the natural language processing in terms of voice happened, and that is kind of interesting to see. And what I like about bots and chatbots is the obviously the response that you get, the visual response that you get in terms of cards, in terms of buttons, in terms of carousels and stuff like that. And you can see, obviously, that Google is trying to marry the two worlds with their Google Assistant, right? So they're trying to marry these, voice kind of, this whole experience that is starting with voice, that you are supposed to talk to Google Assistant, but then get this feedback back that is enhanced with the visual stuff. And so going back to your question, there are differences and there are use cases for both of them. What I love to see is when the customer kind of embraces all of it in the same time and says, okay, actually our use case is to get some transaction going, or to get the user activated, or stuff like that. And it's actually absolutely impossible to kind of say what is the better way. Do it with voice. Well, the better way is like with cameras. The best camera is the one you have with you, and this is the kind of the best interface for your customer is the one that he has right now. He has open, and if it's an app, it's cool. if it's a voice interface, if I'm in my kitchen and my hands are wet and I want to make a booking straight away, probably the best interface is voice for me in this particular moment, and stuff like that. So I think it's not a question of either or proposition, but rather, well, look at your options. I love the voice part because it makes me, as a kind of the one who develops the skills, completely rethink the way we think about interfaces. But I also kind of find it very interesting that in the same moment that we are talking about completely going away from every kind of interface and going completely kind of blind with voice. This is one development. The other development is another extreme, which is happening in the VR world, right? Where you have like this ubiquitous interface all over you. And I think it's fascinating that we have both in the same time. One guy saying, okay, we don't need any screens whatsoever. Let's work with voice. The other guys say everything is the screen. So I think, but in the end, it boils down to what I was getting at is that actually it doesn't have to be either or proposition. The best interface is the one that you have right now in your car, in the shower, whatever box is the best interface, and we are no longer kind of bind technically that you should stare at this at these devices anymore. You could actually do both. And what I'm actually wishing for is that I could start the conversation with the product, when I'm standing under the shower, and then continue on when I'm already dried, and move on and kind of open it in the kind of bot kind of fashion, and then finish it when I came to my work in my desktop. So this is the ideal situation, and I think we're not this far away from this.
Yeah, that seems to be a pretty common trend, actually, from the people that we've had on the podcast in the past, and the last podcast with Dr. Pete from Moz. That was kind of very much the vision, is that, and I think even Jan Koenig mentioned it from Jovo on episode 4 or something, where he was talking about the whole multimodality of it, and you should be able to start something on Alexa in your kitchen and then finish it off outside in your headphones or whatever. It seems to be the kind of way it's going. And going back to your sort of, you previously just mentioned there around, you don't really see a distinction necessarily between voice and chatbots because it's all about whatever you have handy at the time. Are you seeing clients coming to you asking for one or the other, or are you tending to do a lot more kind of work where you'll do both? So you'll develop a chatbot, but then it'll have a voice interface, or what's the most common sort of thing that clients are coming to you with in the bots and voice kind of space?
Unfortunately, most of the clients don't know what they want, and it's about, or they don't realize, and that's why we actually developed this whole workshop thing, because most clients are just heard that bots are a thing or voice is a thing, and they want this for the product. And this is kind of educating your client and searching together for the use case. But the clients that are actually in the know, they are very particular in what they want. And we see that many clients want specifically only Facebook bots. From the time that Facebook also launched the kind of bot platform where you can discover the new bots, like the bot app store or whatever you call it. They want it because they could see the difference that it makes to have a bot in this first actual contact with a client. If a client goes to your to your Facebook page and starts a conversation, 80% of the questions that are coming are very common, and you could actually do so much work with a bot right there. And of course, there is no way that I would say to a client, let's just think about Alexa. No, because they know how many people are contacting them via this button, messages. And they know exactly 80% of the questions that are coming are solved in a pretty easy fashion. But what is happening afterwards, I think, is the key, because I think at the moment there are 10% of the end customers that understand the whole game, and they would try, and when they understand that the company is pretty cool in AI, as they call them, we both know it's not AI, but that's the perception. So they would try the same thing with skill, of course. Because if you already had this very good experience with a bot of this company, of this brand, you would give it a go with a skill and say, okay, they're pretty nice. Let me try next time. And I think that's what we're seeing more and more. Of course, those things, as you said before, there's a vision that everything is connected and interconnected, and we have this. But it's a marketing talk right now. So from a technical perspective, it's not connected, and it's a good thing that I think the company is trying to kind of differentiate voice and bots. But as I said before, if you are moving into the space and don't know anything about conversational UI, it is actually very helpful to kind of understand the whole concept, and then 80% of this understanding is just building something in your head, or as we do it in a paper way, and then deciding 80% on the way deciding, okay, will it be voice or will it be just bot?
Mm-hmm. So, kind of progressing then into talking about the kind of discovery workshop that you would do with clients. Let's say that the client has came to you and they want to sort of do something in this space. They're not sure whether or not the chatbot's the right way or whether the voice application is the right thing. How would that play out then? What would the overarching agenda for the workshop be? How would you go about planning it, and how would you take a client from just turning up, getting through the door, sitting down, through to, at the end of the day, having some kind of prototype, or do they even end up with a prototype? Talk us through the process from your perspective in terms of that workshop. How does that go?
So the first thing that we do is we're trying to kind of wake this imagination in the client, because most of them, they have this product, it's an app or it's a web application. And in terms of understanding their product, they very often understand their product as the device or their app, right? And it's not actually the correct way to understand it. So in the first part of the workshop, we try and kind of broaden this experience and say, okay, your end product is not your app. Your product is not your website. That's what behind it. And we are trying to show this whole movement from mobile first to AI first. The movement that Google CEO last year announced as the next big thing for Google is actually moving from mobile first to AI first. And we're trying to kind of show them as many examples as we could from very good. Bots, from the very good voice interfaces, so that they could actually get this whole inspiration going. And then we are kind of trying to combine this whole inspiration phase with a very hard hands-on experience. So after they got very excited about the stuff that is going on and trying to, okay, they're very excited, they want to hear more, we say, okay, let's just do some dirty work, and then we go into the details of user experience, right? So in what context is your customer going to use a chatbot or a voice interface? Is it at home? Is it at work? Is he in the car? How many people are around him? Is it a private kind of thing? Is it a public kind of thing? And all these kind of questions are the questions that clients normally don't ask themselves when they think about the skills. And then we move on from the context to the use case. Was what I was telling you before is, what problem is this particular thing is solving, right? So, and we're trying to also kind of point in the direction of just if you think about the use case, just count the number of interactions in your existing product. If it's an app, it's like unlocking your phone is a first action. Finding the app is a second action. Opening the app is a third action, and so on and so on. And then they're counting these 10 steps that you have to make before the first action in the app actually happens. And then you say, okay, you want to kind of improve that, right? You want to kind of say, Alexa, please do X and Y, and have direct response. That's your goal here. And in terms of that, what is your use case? What are you trying to achieve? What is the use case for your client? What would be the ideal? Don't think about bots, voices, technology. Think about that. What is your ideal scenario? Imagine you are 20 years in the future and all computers are voice enabled. What is the ideal scenario? And then we kind of boil it down to use cases, and there are like seven steps process that we move all the way from top from the use case and all the way down to which APIs are available actually in your company.
Okay.
To do that.
So you get that into that level of detail
exactly,
as well.
Exactly. Because this is the simple whiteboard exercise with a whiteboard, some markers and some some kind of paper prototypes that we are building. Because this whole problem, this whole process is very relevant. Because if they say okay, we actually don't have any APIs, then we probably saved ourselves lots of frustration in the future, right? And we say, okay, let's talk about that, and instead of talking about the bots and voices and stuff like that. So this is kind of this first immersive stage of hands-on experience. And we're trying. And when they got the use case and the kind of detailed kind of roadmap of what they're going to do, some parts of the roadmap I won't disclose the whole kind of the whole structure, but some parts of the roadmap is things like which tone does your bot or voice interface has? Is it like serious? Is it small talk allowed or not? If it's transactional thing and there's like going to be money in some near future going to be money flowing, then how many times are you going to kind of say yes, I am kind of willing to pay? Yeah, so like double opt-in kind of stuff, and that's always done with the simple paper tools. But those kind of questions are kind of arise in sometimes these big projects in their small notebooks that I'm seeing that people are filling up with the questions to the IT department and stuff like that. Yeah, so this is the kind of doing part, and then we go back to the this whole world of let's imagine some more, and we are kind of demystifying some buzzwords, stuff like. What is AI? What is the state of machine learning, deep learning? What is NLP and stuff like that? So they could actually grasp that there is no, actual AI going on in Alexa, right? But we are kind of touching on deep learning, on supervised learning, on stuff, on topics like that, and then. Once again, they stand up and they do some legwork and they do some paper prototypes. And this is the most exciting part of it. So usually we kind of, build two groups and send them to different rooms, and they work on different kind of approaches, different prototypes. And what they do is they take the stick notes and they kind of put them on the wall, right? And what we are trying to accomplish is the best or the best way that, or the ideal solution, right? So go this one ideal solution with your client, and often it's enough. And after that, we do things like blind testing. So the groups are kind of changing the roles, and they're trying, and they don't see this paper prototype on the wall. But rather they stand with a back to the wall, and they try to talk to another group as if another group were Alexa. So like definitely literally standing there and asking Alexa, I would like to make an appointment. And the other group is not allowed to move away from their paper prototype trail.
That's good.
And that's where the massive problems emerge, right? So because the way that they're supposed to talk to their paper prototype is not the way, it's actually works. And it's often very kind of scary to see this inside of one company, right? So they know the product, but still there are so many ways that a human could possibly say something. And believe me, this is the kind of we kind of moved to this technique because we saw how much costly it is to do that after the development, right? And no matter how much you say this to your client, like please test it on the people, they never do it. So if you do it inside of your workshop, the essence and the absolute necessity for that is so obvious to them. So when we actually come to development in the later stages, there the kind of dialogue flows that are sending us are much more precise, are much more thought through, and you could say, okay, you tested it enough because I could already see how many like variants of the intents are you giving us.
So let's just kind of recap on that then. So you would start out with some sort of visioning stuff where you would kind of give them some background around the general state of the industry and stuff like that. Is that more of a presentation then? Would you start out with some slide decks, do a presentation on that sort of thing? Yeah. And then
just a presentation.
Yeah. And then you're kind of talking about the use cases and fleshing out, the context that people will be in and the use cases that they might have. And then you go through a bit of a whiteboard exercise. And that first whiteboard exercise, is that essentially just to nail down those use cases, is it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just to nail down USP and probable business case behind it, right? Yeah.
Cool. And then you would kind of go back down into the probably maybe it's another presentation, is it, where you're discussing around sort of demystifying the buzzwords and explaining what machine learning is and AI, and maybe it's then trying to bring them down to reality a little bit to let them know that in fact it might not be AI, but it's kind of it's still a conversational kind of thing. And then you would move into another exercise where it would be paper prototypes, whiteboards. And then in that whiteboard exercise, are you essentially asking them to almost like process map their way through an ideal user journey?
Yeah, definitely. With like no obligation of using whatever colors, whatever works, just to visualize this journey of, like you can use two colors. One color is for Alexa and the another color for the user, right? So, but the visualizing part is very, very helpful. That actually to see, okay, in this point we've got to do the API request, and in that point, in this tab, we're using the response from that API request and stuff like that.
So you're kind of almost doing you developing almost like a technical map as well as a user journey sort of thing.
It depends on the kind of level. Or on the kind of people, actually, I should say, that are participating in the workshops. Because if it's like more tech crowd, then we would go into these kind of details. If it's not, then it will be stuff like and it will be very cool to integrate our CRM into this kind of part. And okay, let's do that CRM card there. Yeah.
So would you in that? When you're, and then at the end of that, we would finally finish it with some testing of that prototype to figure out whether it's on the right lines or not. So would you then, throughout this, when you're getting them to do those exercises, would you be facilitating in a way that you would actually be doing the writing and the sticking to make sure that the map would be in the right kind of format and stuff, or would you kind of just let people loose and just say, you go for it and do what you think is the situation?
I think the kind of the most difficult part for us is to shut up.
Yeah.
Because I think they know about the business much more than we do, and it's often when the people are coming with this question, like in what form are you expecting us to do that, and it's just in what form are you willing to do that, and it's almost like this question and answer kind of dance that we do, but most of the question they know already. And it's not, once again, it's not about technical details. We'll go After this part, there are several, theoretical or presentation parts where we go into the tools that are on the market, into the whole ecosystem and stuff like that. They will learn this whole thing, but as I said before, it's very important just to know your use case, to understand, what the user might say, and what do you want, what actually do you want to answer, right? Don't ask me about what the Alexa can answer. Alexa can do anything, at this point, for them. They don't know yet. That technically, but for
shoot
them,
for the stars.
Exactly. Just imagine that Alexa would know everything. What do you want Alexa to answer, right?
Yeah. And then after you've done the testing of the prototypes and stuff like that, what would be the process then beyond that workshop? How would you take that from, a tested prototype within a workshop environment? What would be the next steps then to take that into BotTalk and to start fleshing something out? Is that the process?
Yeah, so basically what we do is all these paper prototypes are pretty basic. Like there's a very, as I said before, a successful path that is lined up. And what we want to do, what we very love to do, is just to kind of type it down in the BotTalk very quickly, because this tool allows you to kind of very quickly to put it down with some completely scripted answers, without any API requests whatsoever, and then just show it to them in the second hour after they've done the paper prototype. And it's already a very good way to kind of see this whole prototype in Alexa, because sometimes you just you tend to they tend to see the problems with Alexa, how do you work with lists, and with how do you work with entries that are more than 3 items in it and stuff like that. And it's a very visual way, or other audible way to for them to understand the limitations of Alexa, and also get this success kick after they're done. And okay, they've got something in Alexa, that is, they have their brand already in Alexa, and I think that's just the imagination starts flowing.
Yeah, that must be a pretty sort of successful end to a workshop if you actually end up with something prototyped on the device itself. That's a pretty successful time, that, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, and because we love to, after that we are sending of course, the thank you mails and stuff like that. And in these mails, they were already sending the invitations to the beta testing. So next day they go to work, or they showing it to their bosses. They already have something. This beta skill in the hand, so and helps a lot to kind of move on the process, instead of sitting there and get lectured from us on the state of affairs in the voice. They get something done, and this is what we aspire to. Of course, there are variations, big companies, and stuff like that. Sometimes we don't manage to kind of do this prototype, but when we manage to actually finish it, it's a pretty success story that we love ourselves.
So how long would that take then? That work, that half-day workshop, full-day workshop?
This is usually a full day workshop. Yeah. For the clients, we try to do half day workshops for just some product managers, just to get the gist of that. But it's definitely this whole doing process takes a lot of time and thinking, and you've got some. You should consider the whole day, because it's just productively more kind of useful.
Wicked. That sounds really good, that. Yeah, thanks for sharing that insight. That sounds wicked. I'm sure that there's plenty of people listening to this who will be able to get plenty of insights out of that and try some of these things themselves. What's the plans then for the future for 2018 for yourself and for Smart House and for BotTalk? What have you got lined up?
Lots of stuff. I think Smart House is going to move into different kind of spaces. As I said before, the VR is very interesting. This ubiquitous interface that you have all over you, and again, our expertise is this very user oriented thinking, and And I think it's an interesting field. But in terms of voice and bots, I think it's going to be a very, very exciting year to see what Google does, because the multi-language support that Google is bringing is opening the world for this. And me not being the native speaker, it's things that you could actually do with your Google devices right now already in Russian, for example. It's pretty intense, and you could see that the other markets, I tend to kind of know the Russian market a bit. They're kind of moving into the space as well, right? So the biggest search engine in Russia, Yandex, is developing their own solution called Alexa.
Okay.
Alisa.
Lisa,
you see,
okay.
you see the fun there. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting thing. And in terms of BotTalk, I think the obvious thing that we are attacking right now is thing that everyone is kind of trying to attack. But I think we'll be one of the first ones, or hope to be. Let's see what the future brings. Is the multi-platform thing. That you could actually write your thing in BotTalk in this language and then deploy all over the place, because BotTalk supports automated testing right now out of the box. All your decision trees are like run through, so you could just test for this dead ends and logic failures before even launching on your device, and it saves a ton of time. And you can actually deploy directly from BotTalk to Alexa device, right? So this is like this whole suite of tools, and what we want to do is actually to have this interface that would allow you just to have a button. Okay, deploy to Alexa, deploy to Google, deploy to Telegram, deploy to Facebook. And your logic is just all over the place. So I think this is like the vision for 2018 for BotTalk.
Yeah, fantastic. That sounds absolutely immense. Andrey, where can people find out more about BotTalk and find out more about yourself?
Yeah, we are pretty active on Twitter, on the Facebook. I hope you would put the links.
Yeah, absolutely.
So people could, they can also check out our videos that are explaining how actually BotTalk works. We're putting lots of videos nowadays out there on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe and to get the newest content. Yeah, so.
Cool. We'll do that. We'll put all of those links in the show notes, as well as the website for Smart House and the website for BotTalk as well. And also the Alexa Slack channel we'll put in there as well, because I know you've been active on there over the last week. That's what kind of jogged my memory to kind of discuss the whole YAML thing, because I've seen you kind of on that kind of platform. So we'll put those links in there. Do check those out. Andrey, thank you so much for joining us. That was an immense discussion. Bags and bags of insight in that. Really, really appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
That was Andrey Esaulov from Smart House Technologies and the co-founder of BotTalk. Seriously, check out BotTalk. It is a tool that I think that Andrey has managed to pitch that at a perfect place in the market. Something that is more advanced than some of the drag and drop stuff, but doesn't require you to get right into the nitty gritty of the back end. And that, it seems as though that tool was built for someone like me, someone who is a designer or a UX designer at heart, with all my experience in that area, familiar with HTML, CSS, can pick my way through some JavaScript to troubleshoot, but not necessarily someone who's going to sit there, and I couldn't necessarily work and write PHP from scratch or fiddle around with all of that back-end stuff, but I know my way around enough coding languages, front-end coding languages, to be able to fix problems and stuff like that. So if that sounds like you, familiar with coding, more of a designer, not quite a dev, then this tool might be perfect for you. I am definitely going to check it out myself. I've got some time aside this weekend. I'm going to take a look at it. I'm going to see what comes of it. Do check it out yourself. Really interesting conversation. Now, the workshop stuff was immensely exciting. If you are in a brand, working for a brand who is trying voice out, you could use that rough template, rough kind of discovery workshop structure to see if you can find yourself at the end of that with a prototype. if you're a developer or a designer, even if you're collaborating with your mates, if it's a hobby, you could run through that kind of stages and those stages in that workshop to flesh out some ideas, no problem. Thank you, Andrey, for joining us. Really, really appreciate you taking the time and really appreciate the insights. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And until next time, see you later.